Hi, my friends, my gentle listeners. Welcome to today's episode of Desire Dialogues. I'm very excited to have some candid conversations with a very fun guest. I really want to introduce you to Juliana. So, she is enthusiastic, energetic, she's a friend to all, um, brings joy and fun to everything she does, which she definitely will to this interview too. I'm so excited. Juliana is a podcaster. She's also a runner, super Harry Potter nerd, just like me. She's a Hufflepuff. Totally would have to go with Gryffindor. uh,
Ooh.
also, demisexual dietitian
Mhm.
and a dog mom. So Juliana lives on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. I'm also Massachusetts, so super excited for our Massachusetts brains to come together for today.
Yeah.
Highlighting as well, really important. She actually has two different podcasts, which include Rana, which is about running in her hometown of Falmouth, and her
Mhm.
other podcast, Into the Fold, a Grisha verse podcast, independently produced by herself with her best friend, Jeff. Did I say that right, Juliana?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
I'm you got Jeff with the G and Julianne with the J.
Got you. So by day, you are working by managing your local running store. Also, you're a registered dietitian. So,
Mhm.
and I hear that when you're not walking your dog, podcasting or talking Potter, you are out running two Boston marathons you've done, the New York City
Mhm.
Marathon,
Mhm.
Chicago Marathon, and the Tokyo Marathon.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got Berlin
Right.
coming next.
I see. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So the Berlin Marathon is next.
Mhm.
My goodness. So I appreciate you sharing with me how you are currently on the journey to just finding the best treatment plans to combat alkalizing spondylosis.
Mhm.
And I am so excited to have you here and let's have some candid conversations about sex. Thank you so much for being here, Juliana.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to be here, representing my I would say I was talking with Jeff with the G earlier today,
Yeah.
and mentioning that I was going to be on your show. And it's just saying that I feel like us demisexual people, we don't get any in good representation in the Ojibwe community.
It's very much so. I agree with you. And I would love to highlight more about demisexuality. And
Yeah.
for my listeners who don't know necessarily what that is, usually the heterosexual, homosexual,
Mm,
bisexual, and
yeah.
sometimes pansexual are really the most known and heard about
Yeah.
terms. Would you be open to highlighting demisexual in your words?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, everyone's definition of how they identify is different. So, how I identify as a demisexual is different than other people's identities as demisexual. But, we share some similar characteristics, just as all people do in the queer community. And so, demisexual is more or less a smaller subset of the asexual category. Like, you can put us by ourselves, but we're kind of part of that little population there where I like to describe it as I have like sexual desires and feelings, but they're kind of stuck behind a door, and not in a way that's distressing to me, but in a
Yes.
way that once you get to a certain emotional connection level, I give you that key, and that's when you can unlock it. And that's kind of what happens. Like it's more along the lines of there can't be a sexual connection until there's an emotional, like person to person connection first. So like me and hookups, I've never understood that. Like my brain just doesn't like, I'm like, why am I gonna go have sex with someone who I don't even know? That's weird. That's like, and my brain just like didn't doesn't recognize that as a thing. So that for me is a valid thing, but that's just a me personal thing again. So yeah, that's
None
kind
of
of the,
the, it's a, yeah, keep going.
I was gonna say it's just the long and short of it. I was just rounded out my sentence.
I love to highlight this. We are in a culture, that promotes like random hookups without
Yeah.
any emotional connection. And that's the thing of it. Not everybody can get behind that. A lot of
Yeah.
people, I believe, need an emotional connection to start where they can feel safe and even have any interest.
Hmm.
And that is, I wonder if this could be a really aha moment for a lot of listeners. And I appreciate you bringing this to the forefront for us to chat about first and straight off.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. Happy to do it. Happy to represent. Just because again, like I didn't even realize this was a thing until one I think I was having a conversation with someone and I was just looking at the different definitions of all the different sexual orientations and I was like, "Oh, this sounds very familiar." because I've just never been able to really describe how I feel to someone until,
Yeah.
and that's very characteristic of me too. I also have like ADHD and dyslexia, and sometimes I need
Mm.
someone to present the words to me, and then I can be like, oh, yes, that's, and then once I have the verbiage, I'm fully fluent in everything that I want to say. Sometimes I just have to have the word first, and that's pretty much what happened was I saw this, I did a little bit of research, like literally like 5 seconds of research, and I was like, oh, this is me. This is me. I watched some like a few YouTube videos and I was like, oh yeah, these people, I know them. These are friends. Uh, so yeah, and I would definitely encourage other people to just kind of like go out there and explore things, that can be either in just like talking to people, like going online research, whatever. But just look around because you never know where you'll find yourself.
It is, and it sounds like you did find yourself, and it sounds like it was pretty liberating. For those who can't see, I can see a giant smile came on your face when you were like,
Yeah.
"This is me."
Yeah. Yeah, it's for me, I like to have I'm for someone who likes labels. Not
Yeah.
in like a discriminatory way, but just like in an identifying way. Like when I found out that I was demisexual or realized what that definition was, or like when I found out I had ADHD, for me, I'm like, oh great, now I have a word to put with this thing that I didn't know how to describe before. And so for me, it was very nice and definitely was liberating to feel like, oh, okay, there are other people out there like me, just because I feel like, again, it's a very small subset of people who identify as that. That doesn't mean it's actually a small subset of the population, but just people who actively know what it is and identify as demisexual. And but they're just like I've just never really felt like I've identified with any of the other like
Yeah.
sexual orientations before, and this was like a nice thing.
That really is, and it's I imagine how many people may look up this term and be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, wow, me too." And the label, it's not so much as categorizing, but it's like, "Okay, this can help me really explain and understand a bit more about myself and know I'm not alone." Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah, exactly that. And
Oh,
it just gives you a word to also, if you're looking for resources on like how to go about your life or just like ways to not feel alone like in day-to-day life, like go find it. I have some like pretty funny like demisexual meme Instagrams that I follow that they'll just like pop up on my feed once in a while. I'm just like, that's funny and that's very accurate. And just like that little interaction where it's like, ah, they get me. They know what I'm
yeah.
going through or like what's happening in my brain from this angle. So it's just nice to not feel as alone.
Yeah, it's nice to feel seen.
Yeah, agreed.
I hear you. All right, let's get to our first question. I am really wanting to focus more on like what sex ed was like for a lot of people. So I'm really
Mm,
starting to interview different people of different generations as well.
yeah.
'Cause it's going to be different, right? So may I ask, what was sex ed like when you grew up?
Yeah, so I was laughing to myself earlier when I was thinking about answering this question to you, and my big answer is non-existent for the most part.
Yeah, right?
I was just thinking because I mean, one of the things that I've kind of crusaded as I move forward through the world is just being very honest about who I am as a person and just like putting it out there on the table, no matter what facet of my life it is, because I feel like there's just been such a long suppression of just who people are, how they identify, whether it's like something with your health, like I have a chronic pain issue or something like with like dyslexia. I said that I had dyslexia and like I can't like I put it up on Instagram and I had like DMs from like 20 people I had never talked to really outside of it. And they were like, "Oh, I have that too." Just people who like would never walk up to you and say that to you. They feel like liberated now to like say that's how they're feeling. So like for me going forward in the world, I like to be very vocal in a respectful manner about
Yeah.
like all the things that I'm going through. And like if someone has a question about like something sexual or related to like sexual orientation or just sex in general, like I like to just like bluntly answer the question if I can and not put any stigma on it and just kind of present information as I can, as non-biased as I can. Um, so that way that person has information. Because I grew up where like my parents never had any kind of talk with me at all, like at nothing, absolutely
So no
nothing.
information.
Yeah, just completely. And like for people's reference, if you're wondering, I'm a millennial, I'm 31. So just to put me in an age category. But
Thank you.
Yeah, like, my parents never said not a single thing. I found out everything that I knew up about sex, like, pretty much through high school through my friends, like, and,
Yeah.
like, the internet, and
Yeah.
like, I was someone too who, like, again, like, coming back to the demisexual side of things, where generally speaking, if you're asexual, you're someone who, like, you never really participate in, like, porn, you don't really have, like, a desire for sexual activities a lot of the times outside of that one person who has that emotional connection with you. So, like, I literally never watch porn, but I don't really have any desire to, and I'm like and a lot of asexual people will probably identify with that too, where, like, I'd rather be running than having sex most of the time, like 99.9% of the time, unless it's that one specific person, you know? And so, like, it's just never really crossed my mind to, like, look into a lot of the things.
Yeah.
But it left me kind of in middle school and high school looking like the dumbass because, like, I didn't know anything. And my um my friends would like say something or like say like some kind of slang and I would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'd be so lost. And like I didn't have any boyfriends or anything or relationships really at all in high school or middle school. So like I had like no experience and I was just like completely like blind essentially. So
That
that's
is a great answer. And it
yeah.
sounds like your parents probably didn't have much education, probably didn't receive much education.
Yeah, I don't think they did.
And then they didn't really know how to share it with you. And it's so
Yeah,
without any at all, just kind
yeah.
of going in blind and staying blind there. How do you think that that shaped your early understanding of sex and relationships?
I think I was just scared, honestly,
Wow.
because I just didn't know what to expect. And like I definitely suffer from chronic anxiety as well too, so that's probably part of that reaction. Also, I will note to mention because this is kind of important to the overall picture. I grew up in a pretty religious like Christian Catholic household, where my dad who I can tell probably did not have a good like sex education, should not be a father. He's just one of those people where you're like, you really aren't like the father material, you know, but yet he has 4 children and here we are. So
So he's got the mechanics of how sex happened, yet
yeah, just not
hard
the
time sharing it. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, but he is very like pro-life, just for reference, and I respect everyone's decisions. I am not. I do not support the pro-life movement. That's a Julianna personal choice, and everyone else can do whatever they want. But like me and my dad's just that's just kind of the angle that my family kind of came at, where staying like abstinence was kind of the message that was pushed.
Got it.
So that was really it, and I was also the oldest, I was under the most scrutiny, like, by the time they got to my brother, he had, like, no supervision, but I remember distinctly being in, like, 8th grade, and I said the word "suck" in front of my mom, and she yelled at me not to swear, and I said, "I don't think that's a swear."
So very religious, and
Yeah.
a lot of the times when I talk to people who did grow up in very similar situations as you just
Mhm.
explained, it's abstinence, right? And then when it
Yeah.
isn't, it's did you feel like you were handed a dose of shame whenever it came to the idea of sex or thoughts of sex?
Yeah, I think a little bit for sure. Definitely, I felt kind of shamed that I didn't know anything when my friends were talking about things and that
Yeah,
I had just no confidence in any like approaching any situation like that I could possibly be in and also just talking about it with people because I feel like especially in like middle school and high school, you know, everyone's judgmental and that was unfortunately when we were growing up, like the way people were be calling people like sluts and like hoes and stuff like that, which was not okay and is still not okay in any capacity. But that was just kind of the environment that was happening in like middle school Julianna's life. And like I didn't want to like be in the crossfire of any of that like hatred, you know, from another 8th grader. Uh clearly
yeah,
sex experts over here in 8th
heavy
grade, you
stuff.
know.
No, very true, and it's like we don't
Yeah.
know what we don't know, and it's really
Yeah.
hard to show up confidently when you really don't have much foundation there for sex ed.
Yeah.
So, and you spoke a lot about, your friends would talk about it. So
Yeah.
what was your first memorable conversation about love or relationships? Like, who gave you that advice?
I mean, I don't even know where my first relationship advice came from. I think more or less it's just come from me seeing other people who are in healthy relationships and how they work together and just being in relationships myself where I've come away from them learning things that don't work and also just building relationships as like friendships and like family like connections. I'm really big into found family and like redefining who your family is to you, but just like finding out how I fit into those scenarios and learning from both good and bad relationships that I formed over the years, and also a lot of therapy. So,
Yes, therapy, super pro therapy, pro
yeah.
coaching, all the things. And it really sounds like your perspective on love and intimacy really evolved over time with all these lessons and things you can
Hmm.
take. And I
Yeah, for
love.
sure.
So, in your opinion, what's the secret to maintaining passion in a long-term relationship, especially for you as somebody who's so emotionally focused?
I think it's just constantly, not constantly like in like just like never letting up, but just consistently showing interest in your partner or partners, however you choose to fly. But
Oh,
I think that just showing genuine interest in what the other person is doing and also just taking time to let them know that they're appreciated, both in, I would say, like spoken ways of being like, oh, thank you so much. But just those little, for me, it's those like little things that someone does. Like they take my dog for a walk when I'm having like a really stressed out day. So, like, when I get home, I don't have to walk my dog and I can just do something. Or you show up and the bathroom, like they clean the bathroom or something. Or they've left like they've done like some little chore that they know you hate. Like for me, it's like taking out the garbage. Like someone had like that took out the garbage for me. Things like that where they show that they know you and that they care. And also just kind of being there as a support. I mean, right now I would say like my longest relationship I have that's like outside of family is my best friend Jeff, and we've been friends for about 5 years now, which I feel like is pretty good for an adult friendship relationship, you know. Um,
very
cons
much so.
Considering Jeff also lives in a different state than myself, and so we don't get to see each other as much as we'd like to. Um, but I just went and stayed with them and their family in Jeff's wife and son Avery, who are very cute. Avery's very cute. And just like kind of like lived in their living room for like 5 days, and
Wow.
yeah, it was great. I mean, like they totally would like I'm definitely the person that like if they had like a grandma suite, I would live there and they'd be just like, "Oh, there's Aunt Juliana. She's over there." It's like, "Hi." But just the two of us like we just talk about things. Like we share our passions with each other and we try to find things to do together that we both like hosting our podcasts, things that keep us doing coming back regularly that we're both passionate about. And also just when something's uncomfortable, just talking about it. I think they and I have a very just both of us have a very kind of just like let's just talk about it calmer demeanor. Neither one of us really ever barely yell or get like super excited in like a negative capacity. So I think just talking is really important too, and keeping your communication lines open for anything, I think, and just being honest, I feel like. I don't know. That's just me.
And I yeah, no, I hear you. And a lot of people have a hard time being honest. I think it's that
Oh, yeah.
vulnerability. And it is, you've highlighted some themes here. Being honest, being vocal,
Mhm.
communicating, and it's that is the secret to maintaining passion. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
You're finding things you're both passionate about to share. And you know the little things to help each other that, those acts of service and
Mhm.
communication is it's everything. When you communicate well, there's not a lot of room for things to go, slipping past, right?
Yeah. I think that relies on like just a relationship and also a sexual basis too. Like you don't have to always know what you want, but you have to know like to speak out. And I think that's really challenging. And I will also say I have a problem, not necessarily with speaking out, but being too honest sometimes. That's definitely not as much of a learned skill for me. Actually, talking about my feelings definitely a learned skill. But me
Yeah.
being honest about things is not the problem. That's not the problem.
And so that's the thing when it comes to communicating about what you want sexually with that person that you form an
Hmm.
emotional connection with. How do you approach those difficult conversations?
Yeah, I think for me, the last relationship, honestly, I was in, like, romantic relationship was almost like 4 years ago now. Um, at which point I was dating this gentleman named Steve, who in retrospect was just depression personified. Uh,
Wow.
and just was sucking all the joy out of my life. I think the best way I can summarize it is that Steve broke up with me one day. I cried for like a full day because we had been together like a year and a half. And the next day I woke up and I felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest and I felt so good. And so that's
Wow.
kind of how I describe Steve. Steve going was not a long-term detriment at all to my mental and physical well-being. So that's fine. But yeah, I think since then, like, I've definitely grown as a human as well, quite a lot too, and like been able to talk about my thing and what I want from a partner sexually. But I definitely, when I was in that relationship with Steve, I was not being as vocal as I care to be now or I needed to be, and was just kind of letting things rock and roll. And also, like, I'm still like pretty inexperienced, like I
Yeah.
it's just because I think the demisexual thing is part of it too, along with like growing up with that shame. But the demisexual thing is a big part of it because, like, I'm in the mindset now where I'm just like a person will find, and I'm not like dead set on having like a sexual romantic relationship with someone. Like if I find a life partner to spend my life with and we just have like a nice, cordial, like very intimate, like emotional connection, that's nice
Yeah.
time. Like that's good for me.
Yeah.
Like I'm happy to like buy a house with my best friend. Like that's great.
Oh, I
Um,
love that for you.
yeah, and like who knows? Eventually, I might be in the grandma suite in Jeff's house. It's only a countdown at this point, but but like I think just like learning from the relationship with Steve, I've taken a lot of things over the last years and like analyzed how that relationship went, plus the past ones before that, and just kind of thought to myself, like, how can I ask for what I need more? And how can I just like let people know what's going on? Which is hard, it's still hard
Yeah.
to tell people what you need. It's really challenging.
It is. Do you also like, have that fear of rejection and
Yeah.
judgment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And judgment, and especially with something, I feel like at a baseline, being demisexual actually isn't a complicated like thing to digest mentally at all. But
No.
it's the word or like the fact that you're kind of like maybe telling someone on the first date, like, yeah, I don't want to go home with you.
Yeah.
And maybe just dealing with that reaction just because like I generally date men, unfortunately for me. But uh but um just like there's a fear for female identifying people going out on dates with male identifying people because there's a history of them either becoming like violent or rude, like in a rude way that
Aggressive?
is like threatening,
Yeah.
and not feeling safe around these people if they kind of turn in the wrong direction or get into the wrong mindset. And you don't want to cause that because you're fearing for your safety.
It is. They seem to sometimes, people will go into dates for just a hookup or
Yeah,
the dating game nowadays. It can be
it's
really tricky.
crazy.
It is crazy. And it sounds like you are navigating through advocating more and more for yourself as you
Hmm.
learned more and more from yourself through these things that haven't worked out, but in a
Yeah.
way taught you something on how to communicate what you are, who you are, and what you need, and what your boundaries are as well in
Yeah.
different healthy sex lives and relationships as well.
Yeah. I feel like anything on the sexual side of relationship should also apply to the non-sexual side of the relationship, like communication, respect, just listening. And not just hearing, but listening in the relationship is key to any side of the relationship, I feel personally. And yeah, no, I mean my number one goal, so I don't do New Year's resolutions anymore. We'll have like little goals of like things or trips that I want to go on, but they're not like
Yeah.
tied to like actually like achieving a goal. They're just like I'm going to go to Berlin, which I am next year, which will be fun. Um, but my only goal for every day and also like the year and like the last like I think this is my third year of like renewing my goal is I want to be a little bit more myself every day. And whether that's in a big
Ooh,
amount or like a tiny amount, if that's me just advocating for myself in this one tiny situation, or that's me showing up because I announced the finish line of the Cape Cod Marathon. And a bunch of the other races down here on the Cape.
yes.
Um, but maybe it's like me like having the best time ever announcing the Cape Cod Marathon and like telling some stupid jokes while I'm there and just like really embracing being myself while I'm there in a really big way. But again, then it could just be like me going out for ice cream with someone and being like, nope, I want cookie dough and not mint chocolate chip. Thank you so much. And like that's my duty for the day. So,
Wow. That was Juliana, I absolutely love that. And I think that should be everybody's goal in
yeah.
a world where we don't really sometimes as we're learning ourselves as well as we go through
Hmm.
with life experiences, having, to advocate and really just be more comfortable with exactly who we are. I think
Hmm.
that's a lifelong journey. And that was
Oh,
the most
definitely.
beautiful way to put that. And I cannot wait to highlight that. That might be like the opening thing, honestly. I want to be a little
Go
bit
for it.
more of me every day. I mean, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's been my I mean, I journal every night too. Part of my journaling is writing down things that I'm thankful for throughout the day because I'm also of the mindset of like, one, we criticize people so much. Why can't we just tell people some, at least one of the things that they're doing well? And it's worth your time putting some good juju out into the world, being like, thank you so much for something good that happened today. It's not hurting anyone to sit there at the end of the day in your journal and write, thank you for like X, Y, and Z a thing. No one's getting hurt. You're putting good juju out into the world. We like it. So, like, but in my journal as well too, I always like write like a little thing of like how I like improve my day, and I always say like, "And tomorrow I just want to be more myself," or I write that in some capacity in my little journal entry because I like to like write out what my mental state going into the next day should be. Um,
Okay.
so like I like to do that, and yeah, I just feel like one, it's a journey that's never going to end, and you're just going to keep discovering yourself until you pass away, essentially. And that every time I take a smaller step towards being myself, like I just feel happier. Like I'm just happier as a person. I attract more people who are in that same zone of just like celebrating who they are. And it's been so great. And yeah, I can't recommend it enough. Go just try being yourself.
My goodness. Well, everybody, you heard it. That is one piece of advice that keeps Juliana grounded in her own, life and love for herself. And that is, I think we
Yeah.
can all adopt a bit of that. My gosh. Wow,
We
I
we
love that.
we try out here on these streets, and that's part of why I like encouraging people too. And like, I mean, the main reason I like announcing the end of the Cape Cod Marathon or any of the races that we have around here, because you get to celebrate people's accomplishments and like be that person who's like, you got this. And I always like to say screaming is one of my favorite recreational activities, but positive screaming. Um, but I'm also the person too, if you take me to a sporting event and I'm cheering for someone, I also have a very loud voice. So you will hear me and I will be telling you you can do it. So
I love it because I myself have a very loud voice. It might be a Massachusetts thing. I'm
yeah,
unsure.
it could be
Uh,
honestly. I think we just also have that kind of like brash sound to our voice too, just in the way that we speak. Where like when I went to Europe, it was so funny because we were with a bunch of people. There was like someone from Sweden, someone from the Netherlands, someone from Germany, someone from Finland. And like they're all talking, and it sounds like this little choir of all their voices singing together almost when they're talking. And then my big fat American Boston accent comes in, and it sounds so bad. I was like, that is just like a giant cymbal clash in like their really awesome symphony that they had going on of voices. And I'm like, hey guys, what's going on? And they're like, oh no.
and I hear you. Like we'll continue to root each other on. We'll be super loud about it, and
Hmm.
I'm all about celebrating. And like I
Oh
celebrate
yeah.
you, and I celebrate everybody, and I want to just celebrate sexuality and
Yeah.
whatever that looks to that individual. So I have
Yeah.
another question for you.
Lay it on me.
Coming in hot. Do you
Okay.
think society's views on sex and relationships are becoming more open, or do we still have more work to do?
I think the answer to both of those questions is yes, because
Got
I
it.
definitely feel like now is a we're going to put the Trump presidency on the table for a second to the side. Okay. With that to the side, where we stand right now, prior to 2025, I would say that we are generally speaking moving in a better direction. Does that mean every single facet of society is moving in that good direction? No, that does not mean that. But I feel like people are generally speaking are more accepting of different humans and different identities and different just takes on the universe than they were a bunch of years ago. And I think it's also really nice to see just representation and also identification of all these different people. Because again, I'm someone who likes to label things in a way that's productive and also just gives people like little silos to stand under where they can find other people who also identify in that silo. And I think it's just nice to see that over the last, I don't know, at least like 5, 10 years, we've seen so many different identities come in the like gender and sexual orientation category and just letting people kind of just be themselves, but like also creating a community in which they can find other people who feel similarly to them besides like just your generic, not that this is like generic or bad, like bad generic, but like lesbians and gay people and just everyone else is just queer. That's just it. It's kind of like the IBS of the sexual and gender orientation world. Like if it's not Crohn's or it's not colitis, then it's just IBS. And that's everything.
So we still have some more work to do, but yet we've
Yeah.
enough has been done for people to be just a little bit more comfortable in their own shoes, also knowing they're not alone,
Yeah.
you know, that's a
Yeah.
big deal.
I think the thing that I would like to see more of is just people having just honest and non-judgmental conversations more often about sexual things. Like it's cool to go with your girlfriends or your guy friends or your non-binary friends and just say like be kikiing over what happened last night. Like that's cool and chill, have a nice time.
Yeah,
But I think just in general, especially through education, it's really important to give people a pretty like I'm honestly a fan of just using medical terminology to define things. So I feel like it just gives you it's like this is what it is. This is what the medical people, it's just like this is a penis and this is an elbow. They're both body parts. Let's talk about them.
I
Okay?
agree. I don't know why they're called willies or,
Yeah.
it's
Like my elbow doesn't have any weird like nicknames that we have to call it by. I don't need to
right.
like it's just these are other body parts. These are body parts, they're not any different than any of the other body parts on your body. They're just doing something different, just the same as like your eye does something different than your nose, which does something different than your vagina, which does something different than your foot. So let's just like these are body parts that have functions, okay? Cool, chill. Right.
I love it, and it really is. It's like, let's just teach them the anatomy. Let's just teach them to call it this and not make it feel like it can't be called that because it's a dirty thing. It's a dirty word like that. Shame, shame,
Yeah.
shame. In a way,
Yeah, just taking away the shame and the judgment. That's all I'd really like to do, to be honest.
I like that too. I'm with you on that, and I am my biggest mission in life is to advocate for pleasure, no matter what that looks like for you,
Hmm.
as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. And I want people to just be educated in a way like that's a thing. You had no sex education, right?
Yeah.
A lot of other people too, it was just abstinence education or
Hmm.
condom preventative education, but there was no education about the fact that the clitoris has,
Like
10 to
all the different
12,000 nerve
sensors.
endings. Yes, it
Hmm.
has no other purpose except to serve you pleasure, and it's like the
Hmm.
vulva is all encompassing, there's a penis, there's testicles. It's just the frenulum has 4 to 5,000 nerve endings. Like none of this was known. There's no sort of safe masturbation. I don't know if it'd be a class that'd be taught, but it's just like
I mean, I think
show
it's
them
valuable,
lube.
all the kids are gonna it's that's a lot that's in the classes that I think should be taught in high school along with like how to do your taxes. Things that you're
Oh, they
gonna run ac-
definitely should bring finance. Yeah.
yeah, things that you're gonna run across and like I mean, let's be real here. Most of the boys in high school are masturbating in some capacity, so we should at least make it like safe. You're not gonna
I
prevent it.
agree.
Just lean into it.
I like that. You
Let
don't
it
have to lean all
happen.
the way in, but a little, enough to know what's going on and how can we make sure that they don't harm themselves? There is non-safe masturbation techniques. for
Yeah.
everybody, I
Or
imagine,
like
no matter
I
what
mean, I just
chemical.
imagine just knowing a lot of like teenage boys both growing up and currently where are they going to stick their penis into? Like if you don't tell them that they can't stick that in certain things, like they are just going to do whatever they want. I am the owner of a brother who would just go and explode things. And I'd be like, "Joey, why did you explode that?" He'd be like, "Because it's fun." And I would say, my brain does not comprehend that. There was no actual outcome that we were going for except for just exploding things for the fun of it. So so I
Alright,
can
so I love
imagine that there are many boys out there many male identifying friends who probably are just like, I could shove my penis in this thing. And the answer to that is, friend, don't do that.
yeah, please don't do that. It's not
Don't do
safe, and
that.
you don't wanna hurt yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
ovens, no. Things with sharp edges, no. We just no, no,
I
no,
would
no, 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 no. Glass
always love
containers, that's a big no-no.
yeah. And that's the thing, it's like we just I have no idea what people, could use as lube. I'm sure I could come up with a whole episode on, all
Like
these
janky
things that
lubes.
yeah, oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you just, sharing with me what ideal sex education could possibly look like for the future, and then I understand, there's fine lines when it comes to age, and also like the
Hmm.
developing body, puberty, and like what's too much, what's not. So like I really appreciate it. Um,
Hmm.
Next question.
Hmm.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice or like one little lesson about sex, love, and relationships, which you didn't seem to really get, right? What would
Yeah.
it be? What would that be?
I think, and this would be a pretty nuanced thing because my parents definitely fight a lot and probably should have been divorced 10, 15 years ago now at this point, but yet they're still together. I don't, you know what? Whatever. That's not my life. Um, but I would say that and this is something I feel like Massachusetts people are kind of like notorious for. If someone makes fun of you, that doesn't mean that they love you. I used to take like my parents like are were constantly mad at each other and still are about everything. And like they would like rag on each other and that's like my family's style and that's kind of a Massachusetts thing too.
I
But
think it is, yeah.
yeah, and like sometimes it's like a sign of affection, but just because someone is like making fun of you doesn't mean they like you, and that's not what love is. Because that's what I kind of determined it was watching my parents and also growing up in a family that kind of like acted that way. And largely as an adult, I don't find any joy in that. And I definitely, the people that I love the most are like, yeah, we'll like kind of like shit on each other a little bit every now and again, but it's not the only way that we talk to each other is through like
That is a
ragging.
yeah, then that's a great point. I see my parents do that too. And I also
Yeah.
see them do that with me. And then
Yeah.
I'll try to change the conversation to like,
Yeah.
Dad,
Like,
you've worked so hard in your life. Like, I'm so proud of you. Are you proud of you? And then he'll change the subject. Like, with the emotional
yeah,
capacity
it's like
is,
zero.
oh my gosh, it's so interesting. And I don't know if that's like an
I think it's a
emotional
thing.
intimacy thing that they just don't want to tap into, that they're uncomfortable with for some reason.
I think
Huh.
that's what it is. My dad's like also his strategy, and he again, I've been in therapy now for consistently with the same therapist. Shout out to Anne. We love Anne. She's great.
Yes,
Um,
and
yeah, Anne. Anne always gets shout outs from me because again, I've worked with her now like 8 years and
that's
she's
wonderful.
fantastic. And I told her she can't retire until I die. So that's the relationship Anne and I have. But she did not promise me that though, unfortunately. But my dad has provided me with some therapy advice multiple
Yeah,
times. And his advice is that when I'm dealing with something challenging or something that's stressing me out about like maybe something that's coming up in the future, I should just try and suppress it and just like not deal with it and just like push it down, push that feeling down. And I said, I don't feel like that's a productive manner to process my feelings, Dad. And he's like, I've been doing it forever. It works. And then you just have to deal with those feelings later. I'm like, yeah, when they explode out your ass and then you can't do anything except like have verbal diarrhea for whatever,
there
how
is no
long.
there's no processing that. Suppression, I understand it can seem easy. That's the easiest way
Yeah.
to do it. And that's what
It's the
we're
easiest
talking
way to
about with our
also like mentally and like internally murder yourself too.
I can only imagine. And it's like these are the things that were modeled to us, right? And we chose,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's not the way I want to do it. I want
Yeah.
to process. For me, I want to process.
Mm-hmm.
I want to shadow, I want to do my shadow work. I
Yep.
want to continue to learn more about myself so I can be just the most authentic version of myself, you know? And
Mhm.
we see our parents kind of really suppress all that. And these are
Yeah.
the males we're talking about too. And like, we don't know. I wonder if they're only emotionally available with the women in their lives behind closed doors. I don't necessarily
Yeah.
know. We just don't know. Right. And that maybe that's fulfilling to them. So it's like,
Maybe.
yeah. And that's what I mean. It's kind of like, for us, a fulfilling relationship is gonna look a lot different with a lot less jokes probably, right? And, like,
Yeah.
we know how to define it. We can take, some of the good things, that
Mhm.
we've seen from our parents, no matter if they're few and far between, we make it ours, right?
Yeah, yeah. We gotta take you gotta take what you can get because you can't pick your blood family. That's again why I'm kind of really into like found family and just like redefining exactly what a family means. Because my family has been redefined for what it like blood versus found, you know. And I feel like everyone else should give like just building relationships a try, you know? Don't poo-poo on something if
I
you
love it.
don't yuck someone else's yum or your own yum, you know, on accident.
Very much so. And I have a, group of friends that are my family,
Mm-hmm.
so we call them, and you get to choose who you want to be around, and those people who love you in those types of relationships, like, you get to define if that works for you. It doesn't have to be what you saw growing up or anything like that. So, and I love that
Yeah.
you've created what fulfills you the most. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. And it's definitely hard too. I will say it's not easy to do that. So don't
I
feel
can
like we're just all stepping out here on these streets being like, this is my found family and fuck you, old family. It's a long process of a lot of therapy. So, and it's not easy.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Do you want to tell people a little bit more about what found family means to you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess found family means for me like originally as a child, you know, going back to the AD days. Um, but like I had always wanted just like a slightly more, I think, emotionally available family than I ever wanted. Now, like looking back in therapy in retrospect. And then I was pretty much just like gaslit by my family up until like a couple of years ago for the most part. And I just tried to like I tried to fit myself into as a round peg into a square hole, essentially, and
Yeah.
just tried to conform myself in a way that wasn't helping me. And what I realized through a lot of therapy recently is that like I'm more myself when I'm not with my blood family. And so like through that and just like leaning into being more myself every day, I've just found other people through like me like leaning into my passions, like running, like Harry Potter, like doing nerdy things that I connect with them and then we just kind of connect on a deeper level because we actually, one, at a baseline, have something that we're both interested in. And then
Yeah.
two, discovered that we are like of the same mind, compatible, and we're both interested in fostering that relationship. And then that just over time, by you and that other person contributing to the friendship slash relationship, just kind of builds that like familial connection and just kind of accepting that person as someone who's going to be there for you. And that's kind of just, I don't know, that's how I found like my found family kind of evolves. It's just like meeting them through something, fostering that relationship, and then just kind of getting to a point where you're like, oh yeah, like this is a person who's like part of my life regardless, and they support me and I support them, and this is a nice time.
It sounds like a nice time, and it sounds like it turns into a point where it's solidified and it's
Yeah.
safe, even though it wasn't from birth, but these are your people, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like 10 million times safer with my found family than I do with my like blood family, just to
And
put it lightly.
I hear you, and I bet I imagine a lot of people can resonate with that. All right,
Oh
my
yeah.
friend. I got one more question. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
What's one book, podcast, or resource about sex lover relationships that has changed your perspective?
Oh, that's a good idea. So I will say, throwing back to like middle school Juliana, that American
Yeah.
Girl book that we all had, that like discovering my
Yes.
body, that was like that was the majority of my sex education right there. That so we'll give that book a shout out because I know that was a
Yes.
lot of people's in like the millennial generation. That was kind of how we started our sexual education journey was that American Girl doll book about like what is going on with my body. I think that was called or something like that.
Yes.
Just kind of step you through like the female side of puberty, which was great that the American Girl Doll Company was putting this book out because it was much needed and clearly
It
very well
was.
received.
I agree with you completely, and that's the thing, like, I don't think, at that time, our mothers or our role models or our caregivers were able to express it and share it in
Yeah.
that way with us, and we needed that.
Yeah, so that I feel like for little Juliana, that was a good way to change relationships. Relationships wise, I'm a really big podcast listener. I feel like one
Yeah.
of the things that's helped me like gain perspective on just like trying to be non-judgmental and also seeing like different sides of relationships. Actually, Why Won't You Date Me with Nicole Byer. I don't know if you know Nicole Byer. She's the comedian who hosts oh God, what's the Netflix show? Oh, it's the comedy baking show where they Nailed It. Sorry, Nailed It. She hosts Nailed It.
Okay.
But she has a podcast where I think it's been going for 5 years and she still hasn't found anyone to date. But she talks to all these different people asking like they're all like her friends or someone that she knows or a celebrity. But she'll ask them like for relationship advice. And it's been very interesting to hear like 5 years worth of like weekly
Wow.
podcasts of like all these different like people giving relationship advice and like talking her through her Tinder profile and also hearing like dating horror stories from people and just watching her evolve as well too throughout this 5 year process because she's been going to therapy the entire time too and just watching her evolve like and grow as a human while
Wow.
also getting this like just super varied dating advice from like all these different people because she's had like Conan O'Brien on, she's had like her best friend on, she had like someone she grew up with, she had like people she used to date on the show. Um,
Wow.
like she just had like a wide variety of people. And it's been very interesting to me and like educating to hear just like how different people attract other people and how other people find other people attractive in so many different and unique ways.
It sounds fascinating, and it sounds
And it's
incredible to
hilarious.
listen to as she grows. Yeah, and I'm absolutely hilarious, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I'm
Oh
like
my.
dying on the floor laughing every time I finish one of these episodes because she's just so funny.
Well, I love it. And you know what? I bet a lot of people can relate. So thank you for mentioning that. And guys, check that out.
Yeah.
So, Juliana, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your experiences, and your views. It's been an absolute pleasure on the show. Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to share or leave with our listeners, before you go ahead?
I mean, I guess I'll just leave with my signature like way that I like to leave shows that I'm guessing on is it takes the same amount of energy to be mean as it does to be nice. So go be nice to someone today, you know? You spend in the same amount of energy. Just do it.
Heck yes. And Juliana, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so the best way would probably be my Instagram. That is Jellyana, spelled like grape jelly, underscore runs. My high school best friend used to call me Julianna, and that I've had that Instagram handle for a very long time.
Yes.
So that's what it is, and I'm not changing it. People are like, you got to change it. I'm like, no, because anyone who knows me now knows that that's my Instagram handle. I'm not changing it. That's silly. I'm not giving that up after this much time. I put in the work for this. Uh, like I actually earned it or something. I didn't. But that's probably the best way to get in contact with me. I'm on Instagram all the time. So just hit me up there if you want to chitty chat, or you're a fellow demisexual person looking for some other people to chitty chat about, or you just have like a funny dumb joke you want to tell me. That's also a nice time.
Oh my gosh, fantastic, guys. So don't forget to, hey, connect with Juliana if you adored her as much as I did today. She is honest, she's vocal, she's going to put it all out there. And
Hmm.
again, really bringing demisexuality into a place where we can kind of look at it, with non-judgment. Um,
Yeah.
and I just embracing it. And I really appreciate you. Thank you so much again for joining us. And until next time, my friends, take care, stay curious, keep the love alive, and listen back for we got a few other types of interviews coming up. And we'll talk to you then.
Yeah. Wonderful.